Hi, my name is Tom Blake. I am the listing specialist on the Homes Just For You team with RE/MAX Liberty, and I am with
Brianna Kelly, VP Mortgage Branch Manager at Total Mortgage.
And Brianna and I have been getting together on a monthly basis to discuss the real estate market in the central Massachusetts area. We've been doing this now, a little bit more than half a year, I guess. Brianna taught a class today on FHA loans locally at the
Chamber of
the
Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce. I apologize. And I was there on the class, and we were discussing, what it looks like to buy in this market.
Yes.
And last month when we got together, there were a lot of somewhat rosy predictions coming out of the media, that maybe rates were going to start to come down, and that inventory levels were going to start to loosen up. And so, we passed along that hope, right?
Absolutely.
We did pass along that hope. And there is still hope out there. So let's be very, very clear about what I'm about to say before I say it. There is definitely still hope out there. But let's start with the bad news, right? So this week, if you go to MLS is the multiple listing service. So we're going to talk about inventory today.
Yes.
We're going to talk about, I'm going to talk about inventory. She's going to talk about the rates and what it takes to buy that inventory. And then we'll talk a little bit about maybe down payment assistance and practical steps to take to buy the house of your dreams, which is why you're watching this video most likely. So bad news. The inventory has not gotten better, and the rates have not gotten better.
No.
Right?
No.
So we've been taking an example in, typically it's Leominster just because it's a good point for us to, that's because that's where
centrally
our offices
located,
are. Centrally located. So if we were to look at what is new and what is active in Massachusetts at the moment, there's 2,891 homes available. Changed to last 10 minutes.
Down by one. Already lost one.
So this is how fast it's going. So one of the things we're going to talk about is how fast this market is moving. So at the beginning of this week, we had 2,798 homes available, right? It only went up 100, in 5 days, which really that's not a lot of listings coming to the market. And 2,800 homes for sale in Massachusetts is not a lot of homes. It's not a lot of homes.
In all of Massachusetts.
In all of Massachusetts. And when we look at Leominster, the last several times we've looked at Leominster, it's been pretty consistently between 18 and 25 homes for sale, right? Today it's 12.
Yep.
So the inventory continues to be very, very tight. If you want to buy a home right now, there can be some still fairly steep competition.
Yes.
Leominster has, again, 12 homes for sale. That is the state of the inventory at the moment. And after Bree tells you a little bit about where the rates are, maybe we can look at the hopeful part of that inventory.
Absolutely. So last time we had spoken, we had talked about how the general consensus is that in the May meeting that the Fed was probably going to cut the rates. So once the jobs report came out for January, which comes out in February for the prior month, they added 353,000 jobs instead of the 185,000 that they were hoping that was going to be added. So that job number just made it seem like, oh, yep, the economy's still going, they're still adding jobs. So that really put in a different thought process of where the Fed thinks we are economy-wise. So, for example, how this affected it. So the average rate, because we were trending down, we were saying we're starting to get into the mid-sixes. The week of February 1st, average rate was 6.63. Fast forward 2 weeks, it was 7.14, and it slowed down a little bit. So this week it's 7.16. So in 3 weeks, it went up 0.5% in rate. So that affects how you qualify. That's something that you have to look at. So one of the things that we get a kick out of this word, stagflation. So what that really is
that's a good word.
Higher prices, but the economic growth is still slow. So it's kind of like these two things that seem to be fighting against each other in order for us to be able to see some relief within rates.
Yeah, and that's actually what's happening with the housing market too. You're looking at an increasing rate which I'm sure a lot of you buyers out there who are trying to qualify for a loan understand. And you're also seeing a very limited inventory with bidding wars. Even at a 7% rate, there's still bidding wars if the house is priced right. Now there's still a lot of houses out there. Sorry, go ahead. You were about to say?
No, I was going to say. Remember during our meeting today, someone brought up that there was a house in Billerica, which is it was like 92, 96 offers.
Stupid. It's 96 offers, I think.
On one house.
On one house.
That's crazy.
Right. So
I don't want to be part of that bidding war.
That would be challenging. Well, so there's a couple things wrong with that. First off, shame on that realtor for underpricing that house that much. I mean, that's kind of nuts, right? You're also seeing the exact opposite effect out there. So if we look at the inventory that's in Leominster at the moment, most of the houses that are still available for sale have been on for quite some time, meaning they're 80 to 120 days on the market. Why is that? Why aren't these selling? Well, they're overpriced by a lot, and you've got a seller who is
holding
unreasonable,
fast.
To some degree. Or there's something really critically wrong with the property and people can't finance that property, like a septic system has failed or some kind of structural issue where it wouldn't appraise anyways, and it's kind of pigeonholed to somebody with either all cash and doesn't mind making a foolish purchase.
Exactly.
So there's not a lot to choose from right now, so it would seem. So I know you didn't want to really super focus on the rate right now. So we want to be as positive as possible right now.
Yeah. So indications are the rates are still going to continue to decline. They still feel that in 2025, by 2025, we're going to see the rates most likely in the mid fives to high fives. And again, so there's a little bit of breaking that again. So people are like, oh, maybe the low sixes and the high fives. Still better than the 8% we were having months ago. And yes, going from 6.5 to 7 is definitely, it adjusts your payments, but at the end of the day, it did slow down. A lot of this will kind of correct itself. And the Fed does still feel like we're going to see some relief, in the rate. So it just might be a little bit slower than we were hoping. Still going to happen, just a little bit slower.
So what does this mean to you personally, if you're watching this and hoping to figure out a good way to strategize to get in that home? You're in your apartment, or you're living in your parents' basement, or wherever you happen to be.
Right.
And or you're in a home that is clearly uncomfortable for you. There's that too, right? You could be locked into a 3.5 or sub 3 interest rate, right?
Exactly.
You can't afford a home at 7%, or you're not sure how to afford the home at 7%.
Right.
So one, there is actually inventory out there. So despite what all the newsreels are telling you, yes, okay, so I've just told you there's not a lot of inventory for sale right now. There's 2,800 homes in all of Massachusetts, period, right? However, they don't look at this other statistic. So if I go and put what's under agreement, so that's what's come to the market in the last few months. There's actually 3,500 homes for under agreement, right? So that means that actually 5,000 homes came to the market very recently, and these are just in cycle to actually go to the sold portion of the program. So if I click on how many are sold in MLS in the last 2 months, just for fun, that number is 3,992. So now we have 9,000 homes. No, did I do my math right there?
Yeah, close enough. Almost 10.
Almost 10. Yeah, 9 to 10,000 homes that have come on and off the market in the last, 2 months.
2 months,
right?
Yeah.
That's a fair amount of inventory. So
it's moving quick.
It's just moving quick. You just have to be prepared to purchase.
That's the key.
You have to be prepared. So, so the first thing I would say, because I'm a realtor, is you would need a good realtor who knew how to write an offer correctly and make your offer as attractive as possible, and coach you well to be able to, if you happen to be in said bidding war, they look at your offer before as very favorable and as a reasonable one to pick, because it's not just about the offer. It is about whether it's actually going to a closing table or not, and a good listing agent knows that. So Bree, how would you prepare yourself financially? Say you want to buy a house.
Right.
How do you start to prepare yourself financially?
You got to talk to a loan officer. You need to get your numbers put in. You need to have real conversations. And I keep saying, you need to know your budget.
Define numbers for me. Like, what do numbers mean?
So when you sit down and you break out your budget, okay, I'm taking X amount of dollars in and I want to pay X amount of dollars out. And what other things do you do in your life that you want to be able to still do? Go out to dinner, take vacations. Or you're like, nope, my house, I'm a homebody, I'm fine, things like that. Also understanding what the expenses would be when you do own a house, because, if you are living in your parents' house and you're really not paying any utilities, things like that, you want to be able to kind of put that into your budget. Now, a good loan officer is going to help you walk through that entire process. They're going to talk about, okay, your mortgage payments would be this dollar amount with taxes and insurance, estimated. And they can probably help with some of the expenses. A lot of listings will give you information on what the utilities would look like, so that's very helpful. And then also being able to prepare yourself for how much you need down payment, closing costs and prepaids, things like that. So again, we've talked about getting seller concessions, like your seller can pay for your closing costs. Not really seeing that in
you
this
don't see a lot of
market.
that right now because they don't have to.
Exactly.
Yeah, they
so
don't have to.
and it's that makes your offer less competitive. So it goes back to that same thing, having a realtor that looks at it and goes, I'm really sorry, but the strongest way you can make this offer is not to be asking for those terms. So some of the programs that have been coming out, like the down payment assistance.
Yeah, that's important.
Been helping with that.
Yep.
So right now, Mass Housing has a program, down payment assistance for buyers. You have to meet certain income requirements, and there's a couple of different programs that are attached to it. They just announced by March 18th that they're going to have some revisions, including down payment assistance for FHA borrowers.
Okay.
So it just opens up the availability to maybe have some of that money that you saved get used towards the closing costs and prepaids. You keep a little bit more money in the bank. Find a house that maybe needs a little bit of love that you can maybe put some money into it. But it's looking at all of your options and understanding, income wise and debt wise, what you actually qualify for.
Yeah, and understanding what you can take on comfortably too. Like a lot of the inventory that we're seeing at the moment, it has some challenges, right?
It's a good word for it.
Yeah, being really kind. It's like the word interesting, right? Interesting isn't always good.
What is it? Bless their soul or something like that. Also means something different. Yeah.
So there are some interesting listings. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one.
There are some interesting listings coming to the market right now, and can you take those on? Because home ownership is the way to wealth.
100%.
It is the way to wealth. I mean, I wish I had this, now that I've just brought that up, I wish I had the statistic in front of me, but I don't have it memorized. But the average person who doesn't own a home, the amount of wealth that they actually have in America compared to someone who does is significant. I mean, it's like $10,000 worth is like $300,000 on average or something, So being able to invest in a home and build equity into a home is the way to set yourself up for generational wealth, and it's a very important part of our society anyway. Right. I would say, and we want to help you get to that point. You were talking about closing costs. There's actually a lot more to closing costs than which I was learning today in the class, right? So tell me about things like reserves and what that looks like. Tell me about what it would look like to get an FHA loan right now.
Okay.
So the average house in Leominster right now is called $400,000.
Yep.
Right.
So on a $400,000 house, let's do a little bit of math.
Okay. Math is good.
So for a $400,000 house, it's three. So a normal property would be 3% down on a conventional financing, but sometimes it doesn't always work that way. So 3.5% down on a $400,000 house is $14,000. So that's what you would need just for down payment.
Just for the down payment.
That's it.
That's the down payment.
Then you have closing costs and prepaids, which I've been finding a lot of lenders, I don't know why, haven't been speaking to that, and it's very important because yes, you need to have the $14,000 for down payment, but then if closing costs and prepaids, which are your first year of your first year of homeowners insurance, your tax escrow, which is usually anywhere from 3 to 5 months of your monthly taxes, and then the attorney's fees, prepaid interest, depending when you close during a month.
Yep. Mortgage insurance.
Yep, if you have private mortgage insurance, things like that. And then you have the attorney's fees, the appraisal, the legal costs, all of that's attached to it. So say it's anywhere from, in that purchase price range, it could be anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000.
Okay.
Okay, so that means you need
$22,000.
$22,000 to $24,000. That's not the same thing as $14,000. And saving up $10,000, I mean, that's
In depending upon who you are, that can be challenging, right?
extremely, yeah.
But that's what you need. You can't be counting on the seller to supply
Correct.
that money. It's very, very unlikely in this market, or at least in Massachusetts at the moment. Massachusetts has been an interesting little bubble. It
has been.
We're kind of San Francisco-ish a little bit these days,
Yep.
right? Where some place maybe like Las Vegas, which has a little bit more inventory and some more challenges, they're actually retracting. Their market's retracting. We are not.
Nope.
We are not. We are absolutely some kind of little bubble at the moment.
Good old New England for you.
Good old New England for you.
Yeah. So, and I don't want to deter people either. So
No.
that means like the down payment programs that I'm talking about are helpful in the sense that maybe can help you put some money towards the closing costs and prepaid. So you want to just have real conversations and making sure you understand what all your options are. And there's pros and cons to everything. And the big part is really being able to say, hey, listen, I can afford that payment. I can live in that house comfortably. You don't want to be, I don't want to be setting anybody up for failure. That's probably one of my biggest obstacles, is making sure that I'm not putting people in positions that they can't maintain.
And neither do we. So
No.
neither do I as a realtor. So that's another really important point too. So it's not just about the interest rate that you're paying, it's the principal you're paying said interest rate on. Lots of people talk about the payment. Your car salesman talks to you about the payment of the car. They don't talk to you about how much it's actually for the car.
Right.
They talk to you about the payment. And you really need to look at what some of these principles are and what it means to you. How bad do you want that home right now? It's an important
Absolutely.
question. Do you have a new situation in your family? I have to be really careful and not step on any kind of fair housing sort of thing. But do you need to expand your house for some reason?
Correct.
Do you need to contract your house for some reason? Do you need to make room for an aging parent or something like that? Is something along those lines where you need a new house? Then that extra principal that you're going to be paying in this market could very well be worth it for you. If you paid an extra $25,000 for a house that was going to house your aging mother or father or whoever, and you weren't paying $12,000 a month for a nursing home, that's a pretty substantial savings. That's a no-brainer in my head. 3 months into it, you're ahead, right?
Yeah, it's very situational, and I think that's what's the important piece. And the general consensus is the longer we wait, meaning if the rates were to come down, it's going to drive prices up, which means now your principal that you owe on that house is going to be higher than even if you have the higher rate. Again, there's no guarantees you can refinance, but if you're in a situation where you owe less on your house, even if you have a little bit higher of a rate and you can refinance, you're still paid less for that house. So it's all relative. It's challenging, but it's doable.
Yeah, it's what's comfortable for you.
Absolutely.
This is some. So I kind of got down a weird rabbit hole because I've been thinking about that actually, because my dad is actually getting to a place where we've been looking at something like that, and it's a real consideration for us. But the other incredibly important thing about housing too is that if you are in a rental situation, you can all of a sudden get a $500 a month rental increase, and it just comes out of nowhere.
Been seeing it, yeah.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of that. We were talking about that today in terms of how a FHA loan, it has to meet certain criteria if you're buying a 3 or 4 family or something, so it meets market rate. Tell me a little bit more about that just for a second.
So on a FHA, it's called a self-sufficiency test for
Self-sufficiency, that's what it was, yeah.
If your FHA is only for owner occupied, so if you were buying a 3 or 4 family, and 75% of all of the rents have to cover the mortgage payment, meaning if a mortgage payment is $3,000, the rents have to be at least $4,000, so 75% to cover. But we're definitely seeing for a while we were having an issue with that. I mean, there's still a little bit, depending because the homeowners insurance stuff is going up, but we're definitely seeing an increase in rents, like some substantial rents in some areas, and it's definitely becoming more cost prohibitive for people to rent, where they could possibly also be purchasing. And I'm seeing a lot of multi-generational people moving in together as well.
Yep.
To kind of pull some money together and still have housing.
There are creative ways to solve all these problems. There really are, but you need a professional's help. You really need a professional's help, and you need to have realistic expectations.
Right.
Bree and I see unrealistic expectations in people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as a $400,000 house right now with a $1,500 a month payment. They don't exist.
Unless you have lots of money.
Unless you have lots of money down, which is great, right? So, but you probably
Send all your friends.
Yeah, send all your There's also no such thing as a $200,000 starter home.
No.
That doesn't have significant issues right now, and I do mean like foundation issues, like septic system's bad, like rats.
Yeah, or just it's almost a tear down.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, so I mean, there are some options for rehab loans and things like that, which we could touch upon. And
that's that's a great. I don't think we shouldn't go down.
I'll be a little short version.
Yeah.
You can find a house that needs a little bit of love.
Yep.
You'd still be able to purchase it. You can finance the rehab work that needs to get done into the property. So as long as there's some financial, you're comfortable with the payments that we're going to end up. So you could possibly buy a $250,000 house and get $30,000 worth of work done in the property, and have some of it increases the equity pretty substantial right from jump. So.
Yeah, I think the 203K loan is something that's very highly underutilized, and think will come into play as the inventory. That's an aging inventory. It really is, and as we move along, I think we're going to see more and more things like that, because there's a lot of folks out there that need a home that can't afford a completely done home. Right?
Exactly.
So we'll see how that. We've touched on an awful lot of things, kind of like bulleted points. So if you are interested in us fleshing out any of these really big topics that we sort of touched on, please, by all means, reach out to either one of us.
Right.
And there should be links underneath this video to get to either one of us, as it turns out.
And then comment if you've got any questions that we can answer within there. And if you like these, subscribe, please.
Yep, please.
All right.
I think maybe for next month we'll pick one of these topics and maybe really flesh it out.
I think it's a great idea.
That'd be great. So, but we had a really good conversation today at your class.
Yeah.
She's a very good teacher, by the way, which is why she's on camera right now too. As the year rolls on, we'll be giving you consistent updates on how we from a local level see the market progressing in as realistic and as kind of way as possible.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.